I'm attorney Eric Lewis with Lewis Legal Services in Indianapolis. One of the questions I get all of the time is, how does bankruptcy affect your tax refund? So that's what today's video is about. Now keep in mind, your particular legal situation may have something a little different from what I get into. So this is in no way legal advice. And as with all of my videos, although this is likely to be helpful for anyone thinking about filing bankruptcy, my commentary is specifically directed to people filing bankruptcy in Indiana. And finally, because there's a lot of variation in how tax refunds are administered in bankruptcy proceedings, my commentary today will focus on Chapter 7 cases. So when you file bankruptcy, you have certain assets, and people tend to think of assets as being money that they have at the time that they file bankruptcy, or property they have, things that they can immediately use or can sell. And assets can and do include things you don't have, like money owing to you in the way of unpaid wages, commissions, insurance proceeds, inheritance, and yes, things like tax refunds. So I'm going to break down how this works and give you a couple of examples. So on the date that you file your bankruptcy case, if you're expecting a tax refund, that is an asset. The first thing we look at is when your case was filed. The day you file your bankruptcy case is important because a lot of stuff revolves around that date. And when it comes to tax refunds, we look at the particular date as a percentage of the year that has gone by. So for example, and let's just pick a few random days. May 11th, for example, is day number 131 out of the year. So on May 11th, we're talking about 36% of the year has gone by. So if you file bankruptcy on May 11th, the asset owing to you on that date is 36% of next year's tax refund. The later in the year, the higher the percentage. August 2nd is day 214, which is almost 59%. Halloween is day 304, which is 83% of the year. And then as of January 1st, the entirety of your tax refund that you're going to get in the spring is owing to you at that point. So what do you keep and what do you potentially lose if you file bankruptcy? So the next question really boils down to a few things: the amount of the tax refund owing to you, and the bankruptcy exemptions that may cover part of it, and ultimately how much non-exempt refund we're talking about. So as you may know, in bankruptcy, non-exempt property is what your creditors get, but it's not automatic. The bankruptcy trustee appointed to your case has to make a determination as to whether or not taking any non-exempt property from you will make what they call a meaningful distribution to creditors. That in itself is something for a conversation for another day, because what makes a meaningful distribution to creditors widely varies a lot. I know from personal experience that my colleagues elsewhere in places like California, they're in shock when I tell them that yes, we have bankruptcy trustees in Indiana who will take $1,000 from somebody and split it up among somebody's creditors in bankruptcy in distributing tiny little checks. And they think that that makes a meaningful distribution. So even if you're in the same court district with the same judge, you can find a lot of variety in terms of having different trustees making different determinations as to what makes a meaningful distribution. Some will let you keep a couple $1,000s of non-exempt money, and some won't. So in the context of tax refunds, the larger the non-exempt portion of a tax refund, the more likely it is that a trustee will take that non-exempt portion and pay it to your creditors on the debts in your bankruptcy. Now, you've heard me talk about exemptions. Exemptions are what cover a certain amount of money or value in property from being liquidated for the benefit of your creditors in a Chapter 7 bankruptcy proceeding. In some states, there are exemptions that cover all kinds of tax credits and large sums of money. And in those states, losing a tax refund in bankruptcy is either something that doesn't happen, it's not a thing, or something that rarely happens. Unfortunately, for debtors in Indiana, we have very limited exemptions for money. So earned income credit, for example, is 100% exempt under Indiana law. But as far as credits go, that's it. Child tax credit is not exempt. Furthermore, the maximum amount of money that you can exempt from a tax refund is what we call the intangible exemption in Indiana, and it's only $450. So let's put all this together with a few examples. So for my first example, let's say you file your case on May 11th. As we said earlier, May 11th is day 131 of the year. So you're owed approximately 35, almost 36% of your tax refund that you'll get in the spring of next year. Let's say that for this example that your tax refund is $6,000. And let's keep this easy and say that you don't have any earned income credit. So 35.9% of $6,000 is $2,154. Now let's further say that you didn't use any of your intangible exemption, so you can protect $450. That brings the non-exempt portion to $1,704. So a trustee could decide that yes, they want to take that $1,700 from you when you file your tax return next year. It doesn't affect you getting your discharge, but your case would remain administratively open so that the trustee can get your return next year, review it, and see if it's worth their time in taking that non-exempt portion. So let's just kind of tweak this example. And let's say next year rolls around and it turns out that your refund was only $5,000 and your non-exempt portion is, say, closer to $1,300. The trustee might still want the money, or they might decide that you can keep it. And then if that was the case and that was to happen, then they would just go ahead and close out your case. Here's another example. Let's say you get, again, a $6,000 tax refund, but you file a little bit later in the year on Halloween, which is day 304 of the year, or roughly 83% of the year at that point. So that means as an asset, approximately $4,980 is due to you from your tax refund when you do your taxes next spring. So for this example, let's say of that $6,000, $4,100 of it is earned income credit. So you'll remember what I said earlier. In Indiana, earned income credit, or EIC, is 100% exempt. So you take that off the table, and you don't have a $6,000 refund to worry about, but you're talking about $1,900. And 83% of $1,900 is closer to $1,577. So in this example, if you got a $6,000 tax refund, the amount that you might lose in bankruptcy could be roughly $1,500. Now, there are other scenarios that I'm not going to get into in this video, but these things, there are things that happen, like what happens if you're filing your taxes jointly with a spouse, but you didn't both file bankruptcy together, for example. There are some scenarios that pop up that change this analysis, but for today, I just wanted to focus on providing a simple explanation of how these look, or how they look at these refunds as assets in most bankruptcy cases. I hope you found this video helpful. That's it for today. If you have any questions, please contact my office. If you want to stay up to date on developments in bankruptcy law and other related things, please click subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching.